the Yom Iyun. So anyone who was quiet until now, now's the time to speak up and to ask questions. Without giving a very formal introduction to Rav Sperling, because he doesn't need any, he's the Rosh Beit Midrash of Nishmat, and we are going to hear a rundown of halachic laws on Chanukah, and then hopefully have some time for anyone to ask some personal questions. Here's Sperling.
Thank you very much, Rabbanit Navid. It's good to see everyone again. Easy yofi. How about we do like this? I'll say halacha, then I'll take a question. And then I'll say another halacha, and then I'll take another question. Beseda, does that work like that? Yeah. And if you've got more questions, I'll talk less. So I want to start with a very important halacha. I went and looked for a source for Chanukah presents. Does anyone here get Chanukah presents? You get Chanukah presents? Great. So the only source I found was all the businessmen who want to make money off us and trying to encourage us to spend our money. There are two, perhaps, somehow out there sources. Obviously, it's a big problem. It's got to be connected with some other small religion that has some festival at this time of year and has presents. I have no idea why they have presents. I don't think they have any idea why they have presents. But that's for sure not our subject here in the Beit Midrash. There's no issur of Avodah Zarah or copying the Goyim in giving presents for Chanukah, because it's not actually part of their religion and a person isn't giving them as part of their religion and stuff. If someone actually gives you a Christmas present and said, this is a Christmas present, then you should speak to your local rabbi. It's not so simple about exactly what to do. If they give you a gift for the holidays, like I know they do in some countries, right, because there are lots of holidays now, so that's great. Obviously, they mean the holiday of Chanukah or the holiday of Shabbos or some other holiday, but that's fine. What could possibly be sources for this? Love? Could just be a desire to give. Yeah, I don't know about that. Could be appreciation. The first source I found, the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, right, according to Magen Avraham also, that there's a minhag to give staka, especially during Chanukah, and it's a real minhag. It's written in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. It comes from really good sources. And maybe one way that people found to give staka was, instead of saying, oh, you're so poor, let me give you money and feel really great that I just made you feel really terrible that you're so poor. Maybe a nice way to do that is just by giving people presents. That does not explain the 10-speed bicycle that you got for your 13-year-old son who was asking for it, right? He probably doesn't need your staka. There's a beautiful idea that the Magen Avraham writes. He says that the poor young people would go around door to door at candle lighting time and knock on the door and ask for staka. Isn't that nice? The Khatam Sefer explains that it's so that you have your mezuzah. I'm sure you learnt about it, right? You've got a mezuzah on one side and the Chanukah on the other side. And then you've got the poor people in the middle. So what you've got is ner, nun, ani, a poor person, mem, mezuzah, which makes the word noam, which is connected to the pasuk Yehi Noam Hashem Elokeinu Aleinu Ma'aseh Yedenu Kananeu, that our deeds should be pleasant. And you do that by connecting the mezuzah, which is a indication of our love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, B'kol Levavacha. The unity of God's name is in the mezuzah. And B'kol Nafshecha is the Hanukkah candles that a person is, Am Yisrael, willing to fight and give everything for the light of Hashem in the world. Your soul is the light, and the lights of the Chanukah. And Kol Mo'odecha is all your money, which you're willing to use to give to tzedakah. So you have all those three together, the nun, the ayin, and the mem. That could be one source for giving gifts, that it's some take on Chanukah. The other source is mentioned in some much later works, like really late, in the last 100 or 200 years, which is that the festival of Chanukah is somehow connected to chinuch, education. And so many, many communities in Europe took upon themselves to use the days of Chanukah to strengthen educating the youth. And one of the ways that we know that the Rambam writes that you educate children is by giving them incentives of prizes, of gifts, in which case the Chanukah gifts that you give should certainly be things that are going to increase Torah learning in people and not take them away. Like if you give them anything with a screen, you've probably just wrecked up any educational endeavors. But if you give them something which has got a page that you can turn over, and with Hebrew writing on it even better, then you've probably educated chinuch. So that was my first question. Is there any source for gifts? And I've answered that. Is there any questions? Yes, ma'am. Do we have a question about Chanukah?
Well, my question is about a specific lighting location.
Ask away.
I did hear once about parents giving to their children. That's
So this comes from this source. That's where we get the idea of Chanukah Geld. There is such an idea of that, and it comes from the idea of giving prizes for education. And I read in the story about the life of Rav Moshe Feinstein Zetzal that he would go to the bank before Chanukah to make sure that he had nice shiny coins or whatever he was going to give to the kids, because it makes a big difference to them, not just like how nice it is, but for learning. They would ask them questions and then give them the thing so they would feel good. Can I take your question about where to light? Yes.
I live on the third floor.
Third floor.
Of a building.
Yeah.
And fantastic sukkah spot, but it faces away. It's really high, third floor.
Yeah.
Okay, and the entrance to the building is way down below on
The ground floor.
Busy Street in Nachlo.
Okay.
So like
Okay, so let's
I
go.
really can see the balcony, but that is a public space, sort of. It is public.
Okay, so let's go and talk about exactly where do we light in big buildings. So the Gemara actually mentions this. The Gemara mentions if a person lives on the second floor, they should light in the window. It's a clear Gemara in Masechet Shabbat, and it's brought down in Halacha that if a person lives on the ground floor, then they should light at the doorway towards the public thoroughfare. But if they live in the second floor, they should light in the window. Now, there's a limitation to this in the fact that there's a maximum height for lighting Hanukkah candles. That height is 20 amah. 20 amah is roughly 10 meters, and that takes you, each floor in Israel is 2.8 meters, and if you think, so each floor is like about 3 meters. So the third floor, depending on how high up your window is, you might be already above 20 amah. However, if there are other buildings that are high, that are opposite your building, then the person standing on the fourth floor of their building sees your Chanukiah in your window within 20 amah. So that's a good help. That's already a start. So if you are in town and you live in the third and up, which is higher than 20 amah, as long as there are other tall buildings around that people can see from their window to yours, it's within 20 amah from whatever floor they're on, then you're good. However, even if not, there are two other options. One option is that the Gemara says in a time of danger, we light inside the house and we don't light in the public area at all. The Ramah writes that that's kind of our custom. That's kind of like become a standard custom. And even though now we've returned to the land of Israel and many, many people light outside, including myself, and that's wonderful, there are still many people who light inside, not even in the window. If you look at, I can admit my how I waste my time. If you look at pictures of great Hasidic Rebbes lighting their Hanukkah candles, so you can go type in, you can do a Google, right? Pictures of great Hasidic Rebbes lighting their Hanukkah candles, and you'll see that they're lighting them in a doorway between the lounge room and the kitchen, between the entranceway to the bedroom, right? They're just taking any doorway and lighting it that no one from outside can see, but they're lighting them inside, and many people just light on the lounge room table. So especially if you're lighting and there are other people present at your lighting, you're not lighting by yourself, then there's certainly great halachic grounds for lighting just in your lounge room, even with the blinds closed. All the more so if you're lighting in your lounge room in a window that perhaps someone can see. The next alternative is to actually light at the entranceway to your building. Now this is you actually have to you have to organize like an Airbnb for the fish so that you've got an aquarium to use to do that. If you just take a nice menorah Chanukah and you put it on the chair there with open flames, it's not going to stay lit. You need one of those nice boxes, and you need to have it in some entranceway that it's actually practical to do that. Not every building in Jerusalem allows you to do that, or is it practical?
Your benefit at all.
Nachon. And that 100%. So you would go down, you would light, and you don't even have to stay there for half an hour. You can then just go back upstairs, open up the Mishnah Berurah, start learning Torah. You can eat latkes. You can Google great Hasidic rabbis lighting their Chanukah candles on internet, and you can do any. There's no law that you have to be present. Just on a practical level, that's very difficult to do. In my neighborhood, for sure you can do it. I live in a very religious neighborhood, which is very not busy, and people just stack their Chanukas up at the doorway at the bottom of the building. I myself live on the one floor up, and I light on the door outside the doorway on the balcony. I've got a balcony which has got a door, and I light on the outside of that. So I stand on my balcony. Everyone walking past the street can see it's within 20 amah. It's only a few meters high, and they can see me and they can see the candles. But there are people in my building who light. They live on the fourth floor, and they go all the way down the stairs, and they put a little box there on a little stool, and they light there. Great. All right, next halacha that I get to say one now, and then you ladies will think about the next question you want to ask. So I'm going to talk about Hallel. The Gemara says that they fixed Chanukah for saying Hallel. Hallel v'hoda'ah. Hoda'ah is, we say in Ala Nisim, that we say in the Amidah and in Birkat HaMazon. From this evening, Birkat HaMazon and every Amidah, we're going to say Ala Nisim. If you forget it, there is a way to slip it in before the end of benching in the Harachamans, or at the end of the Amidah before you take 3 steps back. But it's a tricky nusach. It's a tricky words. You have to know the words, which are probably not printed in your benching book or in your siddur. And so it's much easier if you're going to forget to totally forget. And then you don't have to repeat. If you do remember before the end of benching or before the end of the Amidah, you should know there is a catch-up phrase. You say it, Harachaman, who you praise God who did these miracles in those days, and then you say the whole nusach. You find a siddur where it's printed and you can see it there.
You just say the nusach in Birkat Mazon, which anyway the Rachamans are very.
Yeah, you start when you get to the Harachamans at the end, like where you normally say the Harachamans for Shabbat. Say Harachaman hu yivarech otanu, and then just say the nusach. Start with the word Harachaman. It's good to say the word. And before you take 3 steps back, if you just said the nusach, you probably also be Yotzei. It's not going to hurt you. Just before, after you say the Yehu Ratzon, just before you take 3 steps back, you can say the nusach. But I advise you not to forget. That's why they invented post-it notes, that you can now put one of those in your siddur so you won't forget. Okay? That's Hoda'ah. Hallel, we say a full Hallel every day for 8 days. The ideal place to say that is straight after your Shachrit Amidah. However, if you didn't say it after your Shachrit Amidah, because you're a busy lady, because you didn't have time then, you can say it all day. You can say it until Shkia, until sunset. You can say it all day. You can say it separately all day. Ideally, it's good to say it right next to the Amidah or Shacharit, but if you didn't, you can say it separately all day. Now, are women obligated in that? That's a really interesting point. It's clear from the Rambam that he doesn't think women are obligated in that, and much Torah has been taught about why is that different than Chanukah candles. If women are obligated in Chanukah candles, which is a clear Gemara, and everyone agrees that women are obligated in Chanukah candles, why are they not obligated in Hallel? So, because of that question, there are some rabbis who actually obligate women in Hallel. They say it's obvious, it goes together with Chanukah candles, and Chanukah candles is a clear Gemara. However, because the Rambam is so clear that women are not obligated, there are many rabbis who go with the Rambam and say women are not obligated. Bottom line, all the Ashkenazi women say Hallel with a bracha every day during Chanukah. Sephardi ladies, they all say Hallel. There's an argument whether they say the bracha at the beginning and the end of the Hallel. The Rav Avaji Yosef of blessed memory, he says not to say it with the bracha, and Rav Mordechai Eliyahu Zatzal says to say it with the bracha. And everyone should follow their family custom, either way, or ask your local rabbi, or marry an Ashkenazi. Either way. No, I wouldn't be saying whatever you want to do. Okay. Someone who doesn't have a family custom. I believe that women should say it with the bracha. I believe that Sephardi women should say it with the brachas, just like Ashkenazi women. It makes much more sense to me like that, against the Rambam, but there are Achronim, latter-day rabbis who say that. And in general, it's a big question that we've discussed many times. The place of Sephardi women not saying brachot on certain mitzvot is not so clear. It's not 100%. There's certainly a basis for it. It's machloket rishonim, and there's certainly a basis for that. But there's certainly a basis for women to say many of the brachot, or if not all the brachot, even Sephardi women. And so when we have a double doubt, maybe they're obligated, there's more room to say it. I'm in favor of women to say it. But someone who has a family custom, I don't want to go against your family custom. Okay, I asked a question about Hallel and Hoda'ah. Any more questions from the audience? Yes, ma'am.
Can I share Hanukkah with my husband?
Can you share Hanukkah with your husband? It's a good question. First of all, I'm very, very happy because last year you didn't ask me this question. And this year asked me this question. So things are getting very good for you. That's very good. And all of you should merit that those who the question isn't applicable, that by next year it should be applicable. We should only have more smechot in Am Yisrael. The Gemara says, Ne ishu beito. The Gemara says that we light a candle for a person and his whole household. But then the Gemara says that there's mahadrin and mahadrin and mahadrin. I'm sure you learned about that today. The mitzvah of mahadrin and mahadrin is that we light a Chanukah, we light a menorah. There's a machloka between between Tosfot and the Rambam. Does that mean everyone lights a menorah, a Chanukah? Or does that mean that we light one Chanukah for the whole family? The Sephardi practice is that in each household, there's one Chanukah. One Chanukah. And that covers the husband, the wife, 27 children, covers all of them. The Ashkenazi practice is that Mahadrim and Ahadrim means that each member of the household should light their own Chanukah. So let me answer your question according to the Sephardim and then according to the Ashkenazim. According to the Sephardim, you should only have one Chanukah in the house. Who should light that Chanukah? So at this point, we could kind of make a cultural joke and say, well, it's a Sephardi house. What do you mean? Of course, the husband's going to light it. However, I see you're not laughing because halachically, that's right. Halachically, it makes no difference if the husband or the wife lights it. I saw that Rav Mordechai Eliyahu Zatzal, in his house, a Sephardi household, they had one Chanukah, beautiful Chanukah, that he would light the first, say the bracha, and light the first candle, and then call over the Rabbanit, his wife, to light the following candles. That was just so that they felt together. A Sephardi household that wants that the wife should light, or the husband should light, or they should alternate, is 100% halachically. 100%. The tradition is that the husband lit in Sephardic households, but that was just a practice. That's just what people do. In Ashkenazi households, now let's go to Ashkenazi households. In Ashkenazi households, we said the custom is that every person lights a Chanukah. What does it mean every person lights a Chanukah? So there are four different customs. There are Ashkenazim who act like Sephardim, and they light one Chanukah. That's what they did. Who grew up in a house like that, even though you were Ashkenazi and they lit one Chanukah? That was wonderful. Yes. And if that's your practice, you can keep doing that. You go to heaven with the Sephardim and it'll be wonderful. Life will be great. You can keep doing that. It's really fine.
So that brings up a point
Yeah.
in that, like, Chabad does it one way, Sperling do another way. Okay, you don't have to light inside. You can't pick which one you like best.
Yeah, sometimes you can. Sometimes you can, yeah. Sometimes you can. And the reason I said this is that the ladies who put their hand up, they didn't start lighting Chanukah candles yesterday. Their families have been lighting one Chanukah in their family. That's how they grew up. And that's what their parents did, and that's what their grandparents did. And that's fine. And because there's a good source for that, they can keep doing that. If they want to change, it's also available. But that is fine. What are the other three major ways the Ashkenazim do? One is that every single person in the house lights their own Chanukah. The husband lights one, the wife lights one, the boys light, each boy lights one, each girl lights one. That's one practice. Another practice is that the husband and wife, they only have one Chanukah between them. And usually it's the husband who lights it. And the wife is Yotzei together with the husband. And the Mishnah Berurah says that's called Ishto Kegufo. It's interesting that concept that his wife is like his own body is used here with Chanukah candles. It's not so clear why it's used here with Chanukah candles. But there is such an opinion. So the husband and wife have one Chanukah, and then each one of the children has one. And the third custom, which is very prevalent amongst the Lithuanian Jews, is that the husband lights one, and all the boys light one, and the wife and none of the daughters light. I asked my neighbor upstairs why he did that. I said, I understand the Rebbitzin doesn't light because she's together with you, but why not the daughters? If the sons are lighting, why not the daughters? He said, my girls, what are they? They should light for a year or two. Then they'll get married. They'll stop lighting. What's the point of just teaching them how to light for a year or two? Next year or so, they'll be married. Like his girls are 6 or 7 years old. He was smiling. He's saying it with a joke. But that was the idea that he said, why should they start lighting if they're going to stop when they get married? So that's based on the understanding that that you're going to stop when you get married, which a lot of couples do. What should you do? So does this cover all the customs that we have in your house? Who in their house all the children light, but the husband and wife are together with one Chanukah? Who grew up in a house like that? Rabbanit Navid. Who in their house only the males light and none of the females light? Okay, so that's my neighbors, a lot of neighbors. And who in their house both the men and the women and the wife lights? Yofi. Okay, so the opinion that both the husband and the wife and all the children, each one lights their own one, that opinion is the opinion of Rav Soloveitchik Zatzal. It's actually the custom of Rav Moshe Feinstein Zatzal when he was in Europe. His mother did that. It's not very well known, but I have notes from one of his sons that he said that that's what they did in Europe. He lit one and his wife lit one. He didn't actually do that because he left Europe and he came to America and he didn't want to change his wife's customs to his customs. His wife didn't grow up in a place like that, so he didn't push his customs on his wife. But Rav Feinstein's mother did that. He says that where he came from, his father lit one and his mother lit one and all the children lit one. Okay? It's not widely known. It's not in the Igros Moshe. It's in notes in the back of another book. But Rav Soloveitchik says that. And halachically, if you're just learning the sugya, if you're just learning the sources, that is the most correct thing to do. That's a simple reading of the Rambam. It's a simple reading of the Gemara. It is the most correct reading. Every single one.
It's interesting in our household we have mixed Sparling and Ashkenazim among our children and
Wonderful.
their marriages and so on. And the Sparling actually will write, everyone will light. And among the Ashkenazim, they don't all light.
So there's a confusion there. Okay. The major practice, though, amongst many, many Ashkenazim, is that the husband and wife use one Chanukah, and then each of the children light. And some of them, it's the boys and the girls. That's what the Mishnah Berurah says to do, and that's standard practice. That's what I see most people doing. So, to answer your question, your family is Sephardi, Ashkenazi. What are you and your good husband? You're Ashkenazim. So, you can do either option. You can have one, in which case it makes absolutely no difference if it's you or him lighting it. Or if you take turns, or one says the bracha and lights the first candle and the other person lights the other.
There's no, it's really fine. Or you can light a Chanukah each. And that's also fine. If you ask me, halachically, that's the best thing to do. If you ask me halachically, but that's only if it's not, if everyone's happy with that and it's acceptable in your community and stuff. Yofi.
I read a very interesting piece though about if someone's on a business trip.
Yes, if your husband isn't there, then for sure you have to light 100%. Do we have any more questions? Anyway, yes, ma'am.
I'm wondering about the best time to light them.
Best time to light. So, halachically, there are two major best times to light. One is at sunset, that's Shkia, which stays at 4:43, something like that. Yes, 4:43 according to this calendar. And the other opinion is Tzeit Kochavim, that is when 3 stars come out. There's a big argument about how to figure out when that is. The earliest opinion is that that's 13 and a half minutes after sunset. And many people say it's 18 minutes after sunset, 20, 30, 35. And then there are people who follow Rabbeinu time who say it's 72 minutes. Okay? So they're the optimum times for lighting. Of course, there's an opinion in the Gemara, which I'm sure you learnt about today, that the time for lighting starts at that time and goes for half an hour, because that's when people used to walk around. The rabbis say that's the best time to light. However, today, people walk around a long time. And we already mentioned that many people light inside. So, yes, a person can light very late. Here is the optimum time for lighting. If everything else is equal, you should be lighting either at sunset or Tzeit Kochavim. If you don't have a practice, most people light at Tzeit Kochavim. I myself light at Shkia. That's the practice of the students of the Vilna Gaon. It's a practice of the Ashkenazim in Yerushalayim. It's a practice of all the Midas Nagdim. And we proudly light at Shkia.
More than half an hour, no?
And then we make our candles, because we love being strict. We say, let's do it half an hour from nightfall. In other words, our candles are long enough that they don't just last half an hour, because maybe the guys who said the time to light is really when there are 3 stars, so we do it from, our candles should be long enough. That is, our candles are like an hour long, but all Hanukkah candles light that one. You think they're very small ones? If you've got the ones that are like a birthday cake, then that's not so good. But you got that. So that is, if you don't have any other practice, most Jews in Israel light at nightfall, which is sometime probably around 20 minutes or so after sunset, probably sometime a few minutes after 5. However, here are overriding concerns. One, if people are going to shul and synagogue is at that time, so you light when they come home from synagogue. Okay? So if I go to synagogue and Mariv is going to be, Mincha is going to be there, I don't miss shul to light. Okay? Number 2, it's much better to light if it's within some framework of a normal time with more pirsumanis, more proclaiming the miracle, than to light on time with less. Therefore, the real halacha that's not written in the Shulchan Aruch is that we light when Abba and Ima come home from work and all the kids are still awake and everyone is there. That's the real time to light. The real time to light is when everyone is there. And even though there are in the holy books, it'll be written down, it's better to light on time and there. It's better to wait till your family is there rather than not. I once had a student who learned here, and she told me that was the straw that broke the camel's back that led her to, unfortunately, to get divorced from her husband. Because she was a good, hard-working lady supporting her husband who was learning in a yeshiva, and he got let out from yeshiva every day to light on time. He was a good boy, and he lit on time. And she was working in high-tech and didn't get back home until 7:38 at night. The candles would be finished, and he'd be off back in the yeshiva, and she just had no Chanukah. And she said, maybe you could wait for me? He said, no, I've got to light on time. Anyway, she ended up being divorced. So that wasn't a good end to the story. No, because he was Sephardi, and so his lighting covered hers, so she couldn't say a blessing for no reason. No, it's a terrible story. We're all going to cry now. So anyway, so yes. So if, for example, you have roommates and one says, I work, I can't get home till 6 this evening.
That's a straight commercial by this overpersonation.
Here we go. We've got a straight source. It's really clear that Shalom Bayit. Yes, she says very clear that you should. Had he asked me, I would have told him to wait. Anyway, that's the thing that even if you got. So if you've got one child who says, oh, I'm not going to be back till 10 o'clock tonight, and all the other families there, yourself, your husband, the other 12 children, so you should light at 5 o'clock, and they can light at 10, and maybe you want to stay up and sing Ma'alzu with them, that'd be very nice. But if it's really like people aren't home from work yet, people aren't home from shul yet, calm down, deep breath thing. I say this with a smile because the one thing my family makes fun of is the fact that I light exactly on time, and they always think it's really funny. Abba lights exactly at 4:43, and I light on time. But I always explain to them, you have to light sometime, so why shouldn't it be the right time? Ladies, we should have a wonderful, wonderful Chanukah. We should be zocheh to increase the light in the world, and it should all be good. Yes, you can ask just one question. Yes, anyone who needs to leave can leave, but we have one question.
Totally different time zones.
Yes.
Like, my husband would be in Israel. I would be on call at the hospital in Los Angeles. Okay. He had obviously lit 10 hours before. I would be in the hospital where I can't leave an unattended light
Okay.
going on because I could be called out at any minute. What is the best thing to do?
Okay, so your husband's lighting in Israel in a different time zone doesn't help you at all. That's not going to help you. I assume that you have a house there in Los Angeles where you were living.
Yeah, but I mean, it's, like,
Understood. And is there any?
yes, but there
Is-
is a family member in that house.
So they should light, and they should light as their messenger, as the shaliach for you. If you are unable to light, for example, you're on duty, you're a doctor, nurse, whatever it is, so you're on duty and your duty is going to take you throughout the night and you're not going to get back in time to your residence to be able to light when people are still awake, then someone should light for you, with you in mind, in your time zone, Los Angeles time zone. If you can possibly make it that there's some lighting in the hospital somewhere where you can go and hear the blessings and see the candles, more force to you, kol hakavod. That's why God created Chabadnikim, that they light in all public spaces so that people who aren't at home. But even if you're in the middle of a brain surgery at that time and you don't get to hear the candles, you don't get to see the candles, your mitzvah would have been done by the person who's lighting for you in shlichut. Chanukah Sameach, ladies.
Thank you all.